So,
Okay, we're recording.
okay, so here I have my standard empty scene. And to get the standard assets, the first thing you need to do is actually go to the Unity asset store and look for standard assets. And I believe it's for 2018. It has a little picture. I'll show you the picture in a minute. But first, once you've gotten that from the asset store, we'll go to the window and the package manager. And this is where you get all of your stuff uh, for for your games. And this is right now I have, you can see this window. It says package manager. I have the packages that are already in. I open this up and I can either use the Unity registry or go to my assets. And the standard assets, because it's on the asset store and I've already downloaded them or gotten them from the asset store, I go to my assets and it's fetching my packages. And I have a lot of packages here. So I have 454 packages. What I'm going to do is up in this right-hand corner, I'm going to type standard standard assets, and here they are. I didn't even have to completely type it out, and right here I have it, standard assets for Unity 2018.4. I'll click on it and you'll know in the asset store that you've got the right thing because it has this picture of this sprue. If you guys don't know what a sprue is, that comes from making models, like little plastic models, and you would break the little pieces off of this thing that holds it all together, called a
Really
sprue.
good. It's a really good uh, kind of model.
Yeah.
For
So um, I already have downloaded it into my packages. So at first, if you've just gotten it in the lower right hand corner, it'll say download, and you'll click on that, and then after that, it'll show import, and the import means that I'm bringing it into this this project. So I'll click on import, and it'll
Where
take
does
a
it download it to?
it downloads it into your it's kind of a connection between the asset store and your machine. And so it holds it, I guess, in the cloud on your Unity assets. And it's just something that you have to do so that it becomes something that you can then import. I don't know why it exactly is done that way, but it just is. So once you've hit import, you'll get this little thing. It says import Unity packages, and it'll go through all of the stuff that's in the package. So you could turn some of this stuff off if you don't want it. Let's say I don't want the cars or something like that. I can turn it off. Now I know for a fact that there's a script in here that is causing uh, an error. So I could actually go in and find it, and it's under utilities, and which is down towards the bottom. And let's see if I can find it. I'm not going to turn it off here, but I'll show you where I could. Environment, come on, where is it? Water, fonts. See, all this stuff will be downloaded into it. Once here it is, utilities, and it is the standard or the simple activator menu. And if I know that this is already causing a problem, I can turn it off here, but I'm not going to do that so that I can show you how to take it out once it's
Yeah,
in.
we don't know it's a problem yet.
Right. We don't know it's a problem yet. So I'll import it, and it'll take a couple minutes for it to import into my assets, into my asset package setup here in my project. And I can't do anything until that's done. And it usually just takes a few minutes. It also depends upon how fast your internet is and how good of a machine you have. And you can see it's starting to do a bunch of stuff, bringing it all in. And hopefully it doesn't take too long. One thing I don't have up right at the moment, because this is a clean setup, is I don't have my console window. So I'll open up the console window in a minute once this is all downloaded and show you how to take care of the problem. Okay, now it's all in. So I've got my standard assets in. I'll just close my package manager. Okay, so I go to window here and I go to general and I bring in my console. And I usually attach it down here where my game is. And you'll notice I have 10 yellows and 1 red. And the first thing you do when you get a package brought in and you have something like this is they're on the console on the upper left, there's this thing called clear. And also there's this thing called collapse. Collapse means that it won't show you, if it's the same error, it won't show it to you 1,000 times. If you just have that clicked, like if I unclick it, it'll show me a bunch of them. If I click it, it only shows that I have 10. If it's unclicked, you notice I have 27 yellow. These are warnings. If I collapse it, it shows that I only have 10 because 17 of them were just the same one. It's just telling me it's the same one. So what I do here is I hit clear and notice everything, all my warnings cleared out. And sometimes the reds will disappear, which are the errors. And notice I have this error here. So it's in my assets and my standard, my assets, which is this right here. It's in my standard assets, which is here. It's in my utility. And this is the actual script, simple activator menu. And it even tells you the area on the menu where the error is. Well, I couldn't fix this. So what I found is that if you just click on it, it'll show you where it is in the utilities and it'll highlight the actual script. Now, because I've done this before, I know that I can do this. I can just go in. It doesn't, this script doesn't mean anything. I can just go in and I can press delete and delete it. And it recompiles everything. And I'll have no more. Bless you. Okay, and then I still have 5 yellows. Doesn't really matter. I can clear them and I'm fine. So now I'm okay. I have no errors in my project at all. Okay. First thing I'm going to do, notice I have a camera and I have a directional light. I'm going to bring in a plane. So I go 3D object, create plane. It's down here. And I'm going to make my plane at the scale of 10 by 10. And it's at position 0, 0, 0, which is at the center of my world. Okay. So first, I tend to keep my scene up at the top and my creation scene at the top and my game down at the bottom so I can kind of see what my camera is looking at. First thing I'll show you here is, let's bring this up a little bit. We have 2D stuff, we have cameras, we have characters, cross-platform, environment, fonts, particle systems, a bunch of different stuff. There's prototyping stuff, but first we're looking at characters here. So we're looking at controllers. So I open it up. First thing I've got first person character, a rollerball, or a third person character. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the first person character. And we go to prefabs, and in the prefabs, we have an FPS controller. And we also have a rigid body controller. I've used a rigid body controller. It's okay. I don't necessarily like it. I like the first person controller better. And prefabs have this little blue box. And that's how partially you know it's a prefab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click on it, hold it, and drag it into my scene. Okay. And then while my cursor is in the scene window, I'm going to hit F on my controller is highlighted, and you'll notice that the controller is halfway in my scene. I'm going to put it at the center of my world, 0, 0, 0 that out. And because the first person controller is actually 2 meters high, but it shows it's a 1, 1, 1, it's actually halfway through the ground. And you don't want that, because if you have that halfway through the ground and you start playing, if I play it, I'll show you real fast. I've got 2 cameras in it. Oh, it popped up. That was nice. I'm going to turn this camera off. You always turn off the main camera, or actually we could delete it.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're controlling everything from the controller.
Right. The controller has a camera in it, this first person character, It
So
has a
he's
camera
seeing-
on it.
You're seeing everything through that. Yeah. makes
Right.
sense.
And also what would happen is if I don't, and I have an extra camera in there, it'll say that there's 2 audio listeners in and you should only have one. So the audio listener is right here. And what that is it listens to sounds. Now you can have another control or another camera, excuse me, in it, but take out the audio listener on it. So you can have as many cameras in a scene as you want and they can turn on and off, but just make sure that the audio, there's only one audio listener in your game at a time. Otherwise you're going to get this. It's not an error. It's just telling you that it's there. And you shouldn't have more than one. Okay. So I'm going to come back to my first person controller and I'm just going to bring it up. It makes it easier. And then when I play, I'm in my go into full view on my game. And here in the game screen, I can hit on this maximize on play, or I can hit mute audio, and there's stats. I like to keep the stats up so I know what my frame rate is. And I'll show you what I mean. Let me play it really fast. And then this, I didn't maximize it again. Oh, and to get out of it, hit escape and it'll bring your cursor up so that you can turn off the play. Let's try it one more time. Play it. It's on maximize. And now you can see I can walk around my world. And you see that my frame rate is going crazy, but it's really high. Okay, so you want to have
Why
with your
it's so
frame
high?
rate. It's because I have a really good computer, and so my frame rate is jumping between like 1,000 and like 3,000. When you start putting objects in, your frame rate will start dropping down. You want to keep a frame rate of 30 or above and shoot for 60. A lot of people, excuse me, like 60. Depending upon your computer, you might not be able to do that. You want to keep it at best around 30. If 24 is what we see movies at, and if you go below 24, you'll start seeing a stutter. So that's something that I always keep up and I pay attention to. So let's see, that's the first person controller. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a material just so that we can see stuff better.
But how do you keep the frame rate low? Because as you said,
You want to keep it high. You want to keep it as high as possible. If it goes
30, right?
If you go below 30, you're pushing it. You don't want to go below 24 because then you start seeing a stuttering, and it can make people sick too if you go below 24, and you don't want it to stutter. It's like, imagine watching a movie and you're seeing the frames not working right. And people hate that. So I'm just going to make a red.
Okay, do you guys need to go over this? Do you want to stop and have you guys do it? We did this once, but you want to do it again?
I can't, I'm at work.
It's up to you guys. We've done this once before. Actually, I'm going to
Do we need to do this again, Sean and Chris?
make this brown.
I could go either way.
Make this
I
brown.
think I know what he's talking about.
All right, well, this is all being recorded, so I'll post this recording in the Canvas, up in our Canvas shell. So right below the link to my website, I'll put this recording. So we've done this. I'm going to do this over the weekend, but we've already done it. But if you guys don't want to stop, then we'll keep recording and we'll do the third person controller, which we
Right.
haven't done yet.
Right. So what I'm going to do now, since we already know, I've just pulled out the
I
first
think
person
I'd put some
controller.
objects on there too, so you can see, so you can tell when you're, when you're
Yeah.
moving, it's easier to see.
Okay.
So
no
I'd throw
problem.
some objects on there.
I didn't mean to make a sphere, but that's
Oh.
okay. I can.
So those of you doing the first person shooter, I would definitely do this. Watch this video and do this weekend, so that next week you can show, you can show it that you know it, and you can start building out your game.
So I'm just going to
Good.
call this cube a wall.
Yeah, I'd build some stuff and then move around. We did this. But I think
Yeah.
it's good to review.
Make a second wall. Turn it 90 degrees. Just so you can kind of just see it while I'm playing real fast. So there's my sphere that I made, and here's my walls. And the walls are 2 meters. So you can see that it's kind of a little low for a wall. So if I'm making a first person shooter or a dungeon thing where I'm running around in it and I want walls, those walls are too small. So this would be part of like running your course type of thing. You'd build it up and look at it and see if it's the right size or something. So what I'm gonna do to both these walls is I'm gonna make their height 3 and then bring them up a tiny bit.
It's about 10 feet, yeah.
And then I'll start playing it again. And that's okay. That's 3 meters. I might even make it a little bit more than that, maybe like 4 or 5, depending upon how high the ceiling is for you. Stuff like that. So that's how you kind of check that. And that's one way to check. So that's a first person controller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off, and notice my camera disappeared here. I've got no rendering going on in my game. So there's no camera there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my third person character in my standard assets and find the prefab for it. And there's an AI third person and then a third person controller. Don't bring in the AI third person. That would be used for enemies if you want to prototype an enemy, and you have scripts for that. But I'll bring in a third person character, and this guy's named Ethan. Now this is an old one and they have a new one. And you could use that, but it changes with a different input system. And down the line, I can show you guys that it's a little more complicated. But right now, let's just look at Ethan. And if I play, I can bring in just a regular camera again. And let me find it right there. And I bring it up. And the problem is that, let's see if I can see him.
The question,
Yeah, go ahead.
does Eden have the first person controller in him, or you have to put it, you have to attach it to
You have to attach a camera to him. Okay, so that's what I was about to show. If I just have a regular camera in here
Mhm.
and I play. Okay, see, he's there and I'm looking at the regular camera, but see, he's just running away from the camera because the camera is stationary. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've attached this camera to Ethan before, and I've had problems with it. Let's see if it'll work this time, because sometimes it won't let me because I have to open up the prefab. So I'm not going to do that. But you can attach it to it. Like I can break him. Since he's a prefab, I could break him and come down here and where is it? Prefab, and I can unpack him or unpack him completely. And then I can attach a camera to it. But the problem, I'm not going to do that
Mhm. Yeah,
because
we don't want trouble.
well, I could do that. And if I'm messing with Ethan, I would do that. If you're going to mess around with them and do a bunch of stuff to him, you want to break the prefab unless you're planning on doing something to that prefab, but you can make a new one. And we'll go over prefabs again at another point. Prefabs are great. But the problem is, and I know this already, is that when I attach, for some reason, when I attach a camera like this to Ethan and I put it just behind him, he doesn't move right. Something happens to his controls and I don't know why. So I'm going to delete this camera and I'm going to come down, and in the standard assets, there's this one folder called cameras, and I'll open it up and I'll look at the prefabs, and there's this camera called a first free look camera. And what I'll do is I'll bring the free look camera in. Now this camera is specially set up so that it will follow somebody or an object. So on it, it says free look camera here, script, and it has a target. So whatever you're using, whether it's Ethan or a car or a spaceship or something, and you use this camera, you have to click on the person, hold the left click and drag it over to the target.
Oh, wow.
And put it in. Now, if you're having a problem and for some reason you keep like clicking on it and it switches over, what you can do is up in the upper right, there's this little lock, and you can hit lock, and then it'll keep this locked here so that you can drag, you can go and click on something and it won't change. And a lot of people do that when they have a lot of assets in and they're trying to drag stuff over. Just remember to unlock it when you're done. Okay, and in this, you've got your max tilt, your minimum tilt, his turn speed, your clipping for your plane for like walls and stuff, because what happens is when you get close to a wall, it'll bring the camera towards him and stuff like that. So when I play it, now I have a camera that follows him, and I can use my controller to move around to look around him and stuff. And if I go forward and I'm moving my mouse now and it's turning him, and I'm just using the W key, or you can use the arrow keys. And when I go backwards, which is the S, he turns around and goes towards the camera. Now, if I want, I can do, so it's W, A, S, and D, like a standard, like first person game. If you've played any of these kind of games, you know that the standard generally is W, A, S, and D. W goes forward, A is left, D is right, and S is backwards. You can also use your arrow keys to do the same thing. So if you don't want to use your mouse to turn him, you can also do the D keys, but the camera won't change. Okay, so you actually move your mouse around to get the camera to change its different direction.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you still have, what's the problem again with if you have both cameras? Because I want to be able to have, like, you can see what he's doing, but at the same time be able to see what he's saying.
I think the idea of having two cameras is it can only like look at one camera at a time.
It kind of, that's where layers come in. Like if you're doing a first person shooter and you have, let me show you real quick. If you have a first person shooter, turn off this camera, turn off my third person controller, bring up my first person controller, and I'm going to add a 3D object to it. I'm going to give it a sphere. Let's find it. Whoops. Let's find it here. Let's make it really small. Height is 0.1. X is 0.1. And see if I can see it. There it is. Bring it over here. I don't need that to be so big. Make it 0.5. Let's say this is my gun, okay? And I'll bring it back just a tiny bit. And if I play it, I probably should put a color on it and you'll be able to see. Whoops, what did I do? Okay, see how I've got the little, the square there? If I run up to my wall, it goes through the wall, right? So if you had a gun in your hand, the gun would go through the wall. And how you would take care of that is you actually add another camera to it, and you would call it like weapon camera or something like that. And you would put it in the layers, and I'll go through that more later. And so you would tell the camera only to look at the weapon layer, and you would make this cube, which would be my gun, and put that on the weapon layer. And so all it looks at would be the weapon. And so when that happens and you have two cameras going and it doesn't look like it's going through the wall. And I'm not going to do that right now, but I'll show you guys that later. If you're going to do a first person shooter, I will literally sit down and work with you on it. It's really simple to do.
Did you turn off the third person controller?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay, I missed that. It's interesting that the third person controller is connected to the character, but it's not indented.
Yeah.
You have to actually drag it over there.
Here's the body for him. So if I look at the third person controller, what you can do is you can bring in, and I don't have anything, I could do it really fast, but to switch out this guy, you would take out his body and his skeleton. Just make it all not there. And you would add another character into it. And I could do
Uh-huh.
it really fast if you want me to show it. Actually, I could probably do it. Have it downloaded really quick, but that's where you would put like your other character into it. You would put it into the same area and you would just turn off Ethan's body and his skeleton and stuff. And he has an avatar. You would change the avatar on it. And I'll go over that again later. Because this is more second semester stuff, but I have done it for first semester people, just helping them out. Figure out how to do that, because I just wanted to show the different controllers, right?
Yeah.
So it's set up to this. The free look camera
Free
is
look
set up to
camera. So
Ethan,
you're using the free look camera in the standard assets
right?
and dragging it into the target.
Right. Ethan would
that
go into the
target-
target there.
Yeah, right.
Now, if I don't want to use Ethan, okay, I turn off Ethan. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Wrong one. Turn off Ethan. And I'm going to bring in a vehicle because there's a couple vehicles here. We have aircrafts, the prefabs for that. We have a jet. And then there's just looks like they have a couple jets in there. And then there's also a car. And I'm going to bring in a car. And this is just the car. So there's a car. And then what I can do with this free look camera is I drag the car in to the target.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. And then my car has a camera on it. Although he turns a little bit different, I have to use the WASD to turn him. But some people don't like these cameras or like this camera specifically, and they'll go and they'll create their own setup. You can do that. You'll have to find a tutorial on how to do that if you want to do it. But this is just a basic prototype setup if you want to do it. The car is cool. Some people have made car games where they just race around the track and have to like get through it in a certain amount of time. And if they, obviously one of the great things for a racing game is got to race around the track. You have so much time to finish the track. If you don't finish it, the game ends. If you do finish it, it tells you how much more time you have to finish the next track, right? That's pretty simple.
And you can set up different tracks at different levels.
Sure. So it's like first track, you make it through, you finish that, it goes to another scene, different track, and keep making it harder and harder and harder as you go along. And that's always fun to do. I've never really done it. What I have set up, I've helped people do it before. And I've set up terrains where I actually had the car running around and driving through all the junk and smashing into the trees and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. Turn that one off. And let's bring in one of the planes. Let me see what it says. AI, we don't want the AI. I want the regular one. Whoa. And there's a plane. And this actually might be kind of weird. Because it can take off. Okay, so free look camera, add that to it. And I can't remember what all the controls are for this because I've definitely not made any with these, but.
Wow.
Boom.
And I'm using WASD for this. I believe S is up. W is down, D is left, you got right. And you can believe on the free look camera, you can tell it how close you want it to be. Auto target player, move time, close distance. Let's see, we'll make it, let's see what 0.2 is on this. And notice it just kind of took off on its own. So like you could fly around and have things that you're trying to to stop, run into or whatever. And I think you could, with this, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna turn off the free look camera. Let's add a camera. It might tell me that I can't do it, but I think I can. Add a camera. Let me add a camera. Okay. And I'm gonna move the camera back and up. Let's see how that works. And that did work because I didn't try to add it. And it could be back a little bit more. So that's how you would make a flight game. So like maybe you go fly around through the atmosphere and go through hoops or something like that, or you set up a shooter and you shoot other planes or something like that. And I can even take my camera and bring it back further. You guys hear my audio in this? I probably didn't set that
No.
up because it's got a jet sound to it.
So how did you get the camera to follow the plane?
I went to the actual aircraft. I'll do
Yep.
this again. I went onto
You
the
added a camera?
aircraft and I highlighted it, and then I went and added a camera to it.
Okay, so that in that case, it is underneath the camera object,
Yeah.
or the plane object. Is
Right.
The camera object is underneath.
Yep. And I'll bet you I can do that with the third person controller too, now that
Jason,
I think
yeah.
about it. Yeah, with Ethan. Let's see where he is. Right here. And I'll bet you I can do that. And bring it up and back. Yeah, see, I did it and it didn't tell me that it was a prefab. That's because I built it outside of it and tried to add it to it.
Okay,
So
so if you click the plane or Ethan and then add a camera, it puts it in.
yeah, it'll put it into it on.
And then how do you move the camera where you want, and then it
Yep.
stays there.
Yep. Let's see how
So
this
you can move it closer or further away from Jason.
Right.
Ethan. That's cool.
Except for he's still having a movement problem with this camera, which I don't like. I don't know why it's doing that. The more that I hit D, it's just not turning. I don't know why. I don't know why. A and D, he only goes so far and then he stops for some reason. So, but I can turn him around and stuff. It's kind of weird.
The way that the character's coded to move.
It's, it never was like this. I don't know what happened. I mean, it still works okay, I guess, but I don't really like that. I would rather use a free look camera on that than this one. Just because it seems to work better. Because you can kind of swing it around him and stuff. And here's a free look again. Because I can swing it around and stuff, and when I move my cursor, see, he's kind of following it a little bit more. And I'm only pressing W here. I'm not pressing any of the corners or any of the left or right. If I do left or right, he runs left or right.
I'm gonna stop the recording so
Okay.
that we have a nice compact recording of this.
Okay.